My name is Lynn Burns. In October 2013, my son Sam was stabbed and murdered. Sam was my only child, and at that time the father of a 19-month-old baby girl. I would describe Sam's death as someone throwing a grenade into our lives. Before Sam was murdered, I had little, if any, knowledge at all about sentencing, about prison, about the criminal justice system in general.
The Scottish Sentencing Council commissioned this video to hear what people with knowledge of the justice system had to say about the prison sentences handed down in Scottish courts. The views expressed are not necessarily those of the council. The person speaking who is serving a prison sentence is not shown, but her voice and words are her own. Prison sentences involve time spent in custody, which is usually followed by time spent on release in the community on certain conditions. For example, a condition might be wearing an electronic tag. Some people in prison are waiting for their trial to be held. This is called being on remand. Most prison sentences will have a maximum time the person will spend in prison before release into the community. There are also forms of life sentences, however, which do not have any set endpoint. When deciding a sentence, a judge must consider many factors.
I have to consider really everything, all of the information about the offence and the offender, but I also have to consider what is the primary purpose in the particular circumstances. Protection of the public is perhaps the prominent consideration in many High Court cases, but punishment and deterrence are also relevant considerations.
The concept of imprisonment is very similar, irrespective of whether it's a very young person or whether it's a very old person, whether it's a man or whether it's a woman. Effectively, the loss of liberty, being held in a secure facility, and you're held in a cell where that door's locked of an evening.
I got into quite a lot of trouble when I was first in. You feel as if you need to put on this big bravado. I came in and I ended up addicted to drugs, which I wasn't outside. And that was all to do with fitting in and trying to cope with the sentence that I had got and the crime I had committed. Like, I still have to try and cope with that every day.
Our prison estate in Scotland is made up from 15 different prisons and 2 community custody units, and that entire estate is designed to accommodate just under 8,000 people sentenced to imprisonment or sent to prison for a period of remand. We have some prisons that accommodate men, women, young people. There are some older prisons. The prison that we're in today, for example, Perth Prison, was originally designed to hold Napoleonic prisoners of war. And our most recent prison, HMP Stirling, was only completed last year. So you will see differences in design and architecture. However, the concept of imprisonment is very similar across the estate. A prison will have a residential setting, an area of activity, an area that offers clinical support, an education facility, a facility where we can meet with loved ones, a visit room as we would call it, a reception. So largely, although there are architectural differences, the concept of imprisonment would be very similar.
Daily life within a prison places similar restrictions on people in custody, but how long they stay in prison before release into the community will depend on different factors.
In sentences of under 4 years, a person is automatically released halfway through their sentence. In sentences of 4 years or more, a person can apply for parole once they've served half their sentence, and then it's a matter for the parole board for Scotland. In a case of murder, the court must impose a life sentence, but must also impose what's called a punishment part, which is a period of time within which that person will be kept in prison, and it's not until the end of the punishment part time that a person can apply for parole.
And if they don't meet the risk assessed criteria by the parole board, then they would find themselves continuing in custody.
In 2024, as part of a series of wider measures to respond to a rising prison population, the Scottish Government consulted the public about whether long-term prisoners should be released from prison earlier in their sentence. The government stated that part of the intention was to provide a more managed return of these prisoners to the community. by giving them access to support and rehabilitation services for a longer period of time. The rest of the video discusses different programs available in prison for prisoners who are serving a long-term sentence.
The experience of prison is a difficult one. It's a difficult environment to be in, no matter how therapeutic and enlightened the prison is.
Until you find yourself in a situation where you don't have the keys to your door, someone tells you where to go, someone tells you what to wear, what you can have in your possession, then we don't really appreciate what the loss of liberty is.
You lose all choice, like you're told when to eat, when to go to your room, when to go to sleep. A lot of the time you're in your room with your own thoughts, trying to deal with the reality that you're here and you're going to be here for a very lengthy time.
I was always acutely aware that whatever sentence was passed, nothing was going to bring my son back. We're living with a life sentence. My granddaughter's living with a life sentence. If the person is not given the opportunity to address their behaviour or to understand and take responsibility for their behaviour, then it leaves the community just as unsafe as it was when they were locked up, essentially.
If we're talking about releasing into the community, it's really important to talk about what happens in prison before release. And what that means in practice is access to different programmes.
So what are those services? Well, they may be related to substance misuse. They may be health and clinical in nature. They may require a forensic or clinical psychologist. Or it may be something simpler around core education, numeracy. Sadly, a lot of the people that come into prison have difficulty with literacy and numeracy, so core concepts around education. And employability, how do you make someone attractive to an employer? So we have construction workshops, we have woodworking workshops, we have metal fabrication workshops. There's a range of workshops, vocational training, qualifications and opportunities across various different prisons in Scotland.
It was my first ever experience of custody or anything. So it negatively impacted me for the first couple of years. But then I started doing workshops and groups. I was always told, oh, don't go in and tell them everything, tell them what they need to know and that's it. But I thought, well, if I'm going to get anything out of it, I need to put everything into it. And they've all had a great impact, especially the offending behaviour programme. It lasted 13 months, 3 days a week for 13 months. And the tools and things I've come away with since doing it, oh, they're invaluable. It stopped my self-harm, it stopped suicidal thoughts.
For me at the moment, in terms of whether the programmes are effective or not, really only time will tell. I think that regardless, as a family, we are living the life sentence. I don't want forgiveness or acceptance to be conditional, but I have to hope and trust in the justice system and in the Scottish Prison Service that these programmes are effective, that these programmes are well resourced and that they are being undertaken by prisoners. I have to put my trust somewhere. So at the moment I choose to put my trust in that and hope that they are effective.